Alexis, I last spoke to you in Chernobyl when you were anti-establishment Syriza firebrand. What are you now?
I'm still anti-establishment, but I think that we have to understand what is establishment in our days. Because I think that the most crucial question is from whom interests you are fighting. Who want to protect. If we want to protect the labor people, the vulnerable people, then you have to fight, but at the same time you have to try to find alternative paths in order to protect their interests. And this was a crucial and difficult question when we get the power. I remember 5 years ago here in Chernobyl, everybody have been convinced that Syriza and the left that wants to change policies in Europe is the threat and the danger for Europe. Now, 5 years later, I think that the majority of these people have been convinced that the threat is not from the left, but the threat from Europe is from the right and especially from the far right. The threat is not for the political forces that want to change Europe in a direction of more democracy and equality, but from the forces that want to destroy Europe.
So do you think the response so far from Europe is unsatisfactory? Europe does not have a cohesive policy for dealing with, and you mentioned the extreme right, I'll add in there the extreme left as well, people who want to destroy the European project.
I think that Europe has a difficulty to create mechanisms and to predict the future. Because my experience in the European Council is that we were working on the strategy of kick the can down the road and take the decisions at the last moment in order to avoid catastrophe. I think that this is not the faction that we have to work on. I think, first of all, that we have to solve the political problems that we have. And the political problem has to do, what is European Union? And what has to be? We, all the member states, we believe that there are some principles that we have to accept. For instance, everybody said the principle of solidarity and sharing burden and responsibility. Or we are facing a la carte the rights and the obligations. This is the most important question.
But is Europe doing that? I think some of the criticisms you would have made years ago were about Northern Europe, were about Germany, were about the benefits for the European Union all going north as well. Again, similar question to before, have things changed?
Unfortunately, have changed. We have done so little and so late. Too little and too late. A lot of things have changed, but not radical changes that we need in order to go forward. This is the answer. And I think that this is the reason why we had this rising up of these anti-European forces and the Euroscepticism in the European citizens, because we cannot give substantial answers in the big challenges that we face. For instance, I think that the lessons that we learned for the Greek issue is not enough. I think that we have not learned from the mistakes of the past. Probably in the economical level we made mechanisms, but we didn't learn the political and ethical lessons of this adventure. So I think that it is emergent now to take brave decisions for the future, in the European level, I mean.
Now, brave decisions being, and I'll quote you here, progressive and looking for a social Europe, yeah?
First of all, about that. And secondly, brave decisions, even though this is the difficult path, in order to try to find an efficient but at the same time justice solution in the migration issue. So I think that you asked me before about Germany, about the North countries. I think that the developments have proved that the weak link in the European economy are not the southern countries, but it's Germany itself.
But Germany and Sweden would come back at you and say the Swedes per capita, we've taken more refugees, asylum seekers. The Germans would say, we took 1 million Syrians and others as well. We took them in as well. That would be their response, I guess.
As I said to you before, I think that the problem is more political and then a real problem. Till now, I'm not sure what will happen tomorrow if we will not move quickly in close cooperation with neighborhood countries, and in order to stop war and inequalities in neighborhood countries. I'm concerned about the situation in Libya, I'm concerned about the situation in Syria, I'm still concerned about the instability in Turkey. So till now, the flows are not so high in order to excuse the nervous crisis that we have in Europe, and especially in Germany. Germany is a very big country that could integrate the current numbers of migrants that coming and refugees that come into Europe. So the idea is to work together and to understand that this is not a problem that has to do with the frontline countries, but it is a European one. So we have to find collective solutions.
The populism that has started to concern these European Union institutions and the sovereign states has come from all kinds of areas, the likes of Salvini, the likes of Brexit as well. The August edition in The Independent in the United Kingdom talked about comparisons between you and Boris Johnson, between what Boris Johnson is doing now and what you did in 2015, fighting the European Union. Do you see comparisons between those two battles?
No, I cannot see any comparison, because I think that populism is not to fight for the rights of your people, is not to fight in order to find honest agreements with your partners. This is democracy, this is not populism. But populism is to sink your people in hate, to divide people, and to fight without a goal for realistic decisions.
Is that what Boris Johnson is doing?
I think yes. I think that unfortunately, I think that Brexit was not a good idea for UK. Of course, I respect the British decision, but I remember when we were discussing about that in the European Council, it was David Cameron. And he was very happy because he managed to take a good decision from his side, from the European Union, for less Europe. So he was happy. And because that time it was just after the Greek crisis, and I was like the black sheep in the European Council, everybody expecting to see what I'm going to say, if I was going to block the decision. And I took the floor to say that I disagree with the decision, but I'm not going to block the decision. But I said to David that you do not have to be so happy, because if you want to win the referendum with a solution that promotes less Europe, the alternative that says not Europe at all will win. Because every time people want the original solution than the imitation.
Of course.
So I think that even though David wanted to win the referendum, he didn't want a Brexit. He was trapped, and he trapped his party, he trapped his people. And I think that everybody now are trapped. I cannot see a way of breakthrough. Everybody have become more tired about that, and especially the UK citizens. And I think that if something radical will not take place, unfortunately, the developments will be negative for the British citizens, and especially for the vulnerable, for the workers, for the labor class. So I'm coming back to the questions that I had at the beginning. The crucial question is for whom you are fighting, for whose interests you want to protect.
Does Brexit and the populism unleashed in Brexit represent an existential threat, not only to the British, but also to the European Union?
I think that the damage will be huge, and it will be for all of us. Of course, for UK and UK citizens, first of all, but not only for them. I think that the huge damage will be if there is a no-deal Brexit for all the European member states, and especially for the strong states that their economy are very connected with the UK economy. So finally, this is why you have to avoid it.
And finally, sir, you are now back to being the opposition leader as well. Can you work with Mr. Mitsotakis, or will you aggressively oppose a lot of his measures? Because he is seen as a more European-friendly prime minister. He's part of the old dynasties again. Is it back to the future for Greece?
I cannot say that it is a push forward to the future. The fact that in Greece we used to have three political families like dynasties that wants to take the power, and I think that the fact that we're back in a member of this family as a prime minister is not a progressive step. But the problem is not that. The problem is that Mr. Mitsotakis, even though he wants to show that he's a pro-European, he had a very conservative position in a brave step that we did in order to solve the name issue with North Macedonia. And he took a very populistic position on that. He was working together with the extreme right in order to block this agreement. I think that he has to work and to move forward in order to take advantage of what we did the last 4.5 years. We managed to go back to growth, to go back on track. When I got to the power, unemployment was 28%, now it's 17%. The Greek 10 years bond yield was 15%, now it's 2.5%. So the most important that he has to do is to try to have a better future for the country with a more flexible policy, especially in relation with the primary surpluses. So whatever we did had a goal, we had a strategy to prove that we can do it. We regained credibility. We had for 3 consecutive years huge surpluses. We came back on growth, but we said that okay, now, and this was in the first semester of 2019, now from 2020 it's time to have a relief. And we managed to collect almost 40 billion in the Greek public funds. When we gave the power, it was absolutely empty. And we said, okay, now we will create an escrow account of 5.5 billion of these 40 billions in order to be sure that our partners will take their money back. But we are sovereign to take the decision to decrease the primary surplus from 3.5 to 2.5 for 2020. Unfortunately, Mr. Mitsotakis, when he took the power, he didn't accept this proposal, and he wants to renegotiate something that we did without negotiations. Because I think that he believes in reforms, neoliberal reforms, that was the main core of the memoranda, first, two and third memoranda. So he wants to excuse that these reforms are because of the increasing of the goals. But the increasing of the goals were theirs already. So I'm here not only to be in a extremely opposition strategy, but in order to be helpful for the people and for my country. So I have declared that if he wants to have an ally in order to fight for better results for the people, I will be there. But if he wants to give back whatever we managed to catch with difficult fights, with the sacrifices of the Greek people, I will be on the opposite side.